Ready for a historical mind-bender? The famous Wu Zetian of China.
Uh-huh.
She might not have been the first woman to hold that kind of power.
Really?
Today we're going beyond the usual suspects
Okay.
to explore early female leadership.
Like it.
We've got Hatshepsut,
Okay.
Cleopatra,
Mm-hmm.
Empress Matilda,
Right.
even a mysterious Tibetan queen named Yudron. And get this, we'll be comparing them all to Wu Zetian to see what her story tells us about women and power across the globe.
It's fascinating to think about how these women,
Yeah.
separated by so much distance in culture,
Right.
they all had similar challenges getting authority.
Yeah.
Their stories give us a unique perspective on how ideas about gender and leadership have changed, or maybe haven't changed.
Yeah, throughout history.
Yeah.
So let's start with Hatshepsut.
Right.
She ruled Egypt as pharaoh in the 15th century BC.
Wow.
Now, most pharaohs we think of...
Yeah, have those majestic beards, right?
Right.
But Hatshepsut,
Yeah.
she wore a false beard.
Wow, talk about making a statement.
Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't just fashion, though.
No.
It was a strategic power play.
Interesting.
Ancient Egypt was really patriarchal.
Uh-huh.
And those visual symbols,
Yeah.
they were so important for authority.
Right.
So by taking on those traditional markers of male power, Hatshepsut was directly challenging those norms and making her subjects accept her as pharaoh.
That's brilliant.
It wasn't just ruling.
Right.
It was about changing how
Yeah.
people saw her authority.
Exactly.
It makes me wonder,
Yeah.
did other female rulers do similar things to get past those gender barriers?
Absolutely. Cleopatra VII, for example.
Oh, yeah.
She used her charm, intellect, and those strategic alliances with Roman leaders to have influence in a world where women were often seen as pawns in these political games.
Yeah.
She never had the title of emperor.
Right. But she had so much power
Yeah.
just through her relationships with guys like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony.
It's like she found a different way to get power within the system.
Yeah.
Not by directly challenging male authority,
Right.
but by using those relationships
Oh,
to
that-
get what she wanted. That's so fascinating.
It is.
But let's switch gears for a second.
Okay.
We've been talking about Egypt, a place with a well-documented history.
Right.
Now let's go to 7th century Tibet,
Okay.
where things get a little more mysterious.
Oh, like it.
Have you ever heard of Queen Yudron?
Yudron? No.
Her reign is like a puzzle with missing pieces. We know she had a lot of political power, but the records are so scarce, it's hard to really understand her story.
Interesting.
And this brings up a big point.
What's that?
The history of powerful women. It's often incomplete,
Definitely.
overshadowed by the stories of men.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how many other women, like Yudron, have been erased from history just because their stories weren't considered important enough to write down.
It's a sobering thought.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it makes me appreciate the stories we do have, like Empress Matilda of England.
Oh, yeah.
She was a force to be reckoned with in 12th century Europe. She even fought in a civil war for the English throne.
Wow.
And while she didn't win, her story proves that medieval Europe wasn't just a man's world.
Empress Matilda's story is really important
Yeah.
because it shows that women wanted power,
Uh-huh.
not just in ancient civilizations,
Yeah.
but right in the heart of medieval Europe,
Right.
challenging those feudal norms
Yeah.
and shaking up the power structure.
So we've seen these examples of female leadership in
Yeah.
ancient Egypt, Tibet,
Yeah.
and even medieval England.
Right.
But now let's go back to our main focus,
Okay.
Wu Zetian of China.
Got it.
What sets her apart
Yeah.
is that she didn't just have power. Uh-huh.
She officially took the title of emperor,
Wow.
the only woman in Chinese history to do so.
And her reign wasn't short-lived. It lasted almost half a century.
It's incredible, right?
Yeah.
But we also need to understand how she did it.
Yeah.
In the very patriarchal world of 7th century China.
For sure.
So how did she manage to rise to such a position
Right.
in a society so deeply rooted in those Confucian values
Yeah.
that emphasized male dominance?
That's where her story gets really interesting.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Wu Zetian was a master of understanding, not just politics,
Yeah.
but human psychology.
Why?
She knew that if she went head-on against that patriarchal order,
Yeah.
she'd be met with so much resistance.
Of course.
So she used a multifaceted approach
Okay.
that was both cunning and calculated.
I've read about her tactics,
Uh-huh.
but break it down for me.
Okay.
What were her main strategies for dealing with this male-dominated world?
Well, her first move was brilliant.
She played into existing expectations by promoting those traditional Confucian virtues,
Okay.
like obedience and subservience.
Really?
Seems contradictory.
Yeah.
But it worked to pacify the men in her court.
Interesting.
It made them feel secure
How so?
by suggesting that she wasn't trying to disrupt the system.
It's like she was saying,
Yeah.
don't worry, guys, I'm still following the rules.
Exactly.
Even though I'm in charge now.
Yeah.
Talk about playing the long game.
Right.
But it seems like she did more than just appease the men.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard about her using religion, especially Buddhism, to solidify her power.
This was her most masterful move.
Tell me more.
By skillfully using Buddhist scriptures and imagery,
Okay.
she created a story that went beyond gender.
Interesting.
She presented herself as divinely chosen to lead.
Wow.
Almost like a Buddha herself.
So instead of fighting the patriarchy,
Yeah.
she reframed it, placing herself above it as a divine figure.
Right. Now that's what I call a power move.
It was more than just manipulation.
Really?
Wu Zetian actually excelled in things traditionally associated with male scholars,
Right.
poetry and calligraphy.
Oh, wow.
This further strengthened her image
Right.
as a capable and well-rounded leader.
It's amazing how she turned what could have been a weakness, her gender, into a strength.
It really is.
It makes me wonder if this could have happened in any other time in Chinese history.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, we need to talk about the Tang Dynasty itself.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
It seems like women had a lot more freedom back then
They did.
compared to other dynasties.
It was a unique period in Chinese history, marked by a real openness to different cultures.
Okay.
And a more fluid social structure.
Interesting.
This context was really important for Wu Zetian's rise.
I see.
Imagine in the later dynasties, women had things like foot binding, really restricting their movement.
And participation in society.
Right.
But in the Tang Dynasty, women rode horses.
Wow.
Were involved in public life. Even held positions of power.
It's crazy to think about that level of freedom.
I know.
In a society we think of as being so patriarchal.
Right.
It reminds me of the Ballad of Mulan.
Oh, yeah.
That story about a woman warrior that came from this era.
The Ballad of Mulan.
Yeah.
It's a great example of how they viewed strong women back then. But it's important to remember.
What's that?
This freedom was usually only for upper-class women.
Ah, I see.
Lower-class women still had lots of restrictions.
Right.
And were expected to follow those Confucian ideals
Yeah.
of staying home and being subservient.
So it wasn't perfect equality.
No, not at all.
But it was definitely a unique time.
It was.
And it makes Wu Zetian's accomplishments even more remarkable.
Absolutely.
She was breaking barriers in a society
Yeah.
that, while more open than what came after, was still deeply patriarchal at its core.
Exactly. To understand this unique environment, we need to look deeper at the cultural influences at play. The Tang Dynasty was a real melting pot, blending stuff from the nomadic cultures of the north.
Yeah.
Which tended to have more equal views on gender roles.
Interesting.
With those Confucian-influenced cultures of the South.
It sounds like a fascinating mix.
Well, it was.
So how did these different cultures shape the status of women?
Well, the nomadic cultures of the North, with their history of horseback riding and warrior traditions, they saw women as more equal partners in society. And this seeped into the Tang Dynasty, contrasting with the stricter Confucian ideals from the South that emphasized female subservience.
Got it.
It's this tension between different cultural values that helps explain the unique position of women during that time.
So it's not just like Tang Dynasty equals women's liberation.
Exactly.
It's more complex than that.
It is.
But I'm curious, was there anything in the Tang Dynasty's political structure itself that contributed to this openness toward women?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
The Tang Dynasty had a fairly decentralized power structure. With powerful families always fighting for influence.
Oh, wow.
This made the political scene more fluid and competitive. And in some ways, it opened up opportunities for ambitious people, regardless of their gender.
So you're saying the political chaos actually helped Wu Zetian?
In a way, yes.
That's a wild thought.
It's like a real-life Game of Thrones.
Yeah. But all this talk about political maneuvering, it makes me think about how Wu Zetian actually governed.
Right.
Was she a good ruler? or just a master manipulator who happened to be on the throne?
Well, the historical records show
Yeah.
a nuanced picture of Wu Zetian as a ruler.
Okay.
On one hand, she put in place some important reforms that had a lasting good impact on the Tang Dynasty.
Like what?
For example, she expanded the civil service examination system, making it more meritocratic.
So people could rise based on their skills.
Exactly.
Not just their family connections.
Right.
That sounds pretty progressive.
It was for the 7th century.
Any other notable reforms she made?
She focused a lot on boosting agriculture.
Okay.
Which led to economic growth.
Makes sense.
She knew that a strong empire needed a solid base, and she took steps to ensure people were fed.
Right.
And the economy was doing well.
Smart.
She also made strategic decisions to strengthen the military.
Okay.
Recognizing the need for a strong army to protect the borders.
Makes sense. Sound like she had a good grasp.
She did.
Of what it took to keep an empire running.
Yes. But I can't help but wonder.
What's that?
How she dealt with all the pushback.
Oh, yeah.
From those who didn't like her rule.
It must have been hard.
It was.
To stay in control.
Yes. Especially in such a patriarchal society.
Right. Even with all her clever strategies.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
She faced constant challenges.
I bet.
Throughout her time as ruler, people called her ruthless, power-hungry, even a usurper.
Wow.
They criticized her ambition.
Yeah.
Her tactics.
Yeah.
Even her personal life.
She sounds like a strong woman.
She was.
Did she have any allies in the court? Or was she mostly on her own in this power struggle?
Wu Zetian was great at making allies.
Okay.
And building a support network. She could spot talent. And she surrounded herself with capable people.
Okay.
Regardless of their gender or background.
So she was inclusive in that way.
She was.
Interesting.
She understood that good governance required having the right people in the right positions. And she wasn't afraid to elevate those who were loyal and competent.
So it wasn't all force and manipulation.
Yeah.
She was also a skilled leader.
Definitely.
Who knew how to build a team and delegate effectively.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm sure even with a good team,
there
must have been some major crises during her reign.
What were some of the biggest hurdles she had to overcome?
Like any ruler, she had her share of troubles.
Of course.
Rebellions, natural disasters, whispers of discontent from those trying to undermine her.
I can imagine.
Court intrigues. Power struggles within her own family.
Oh, wow.
Threats from other kingdoms.
It sounds exhausting.
It was a constant battle to stay in control.
But what about the good stuff? What were her greatest achievements?
Well, aside from the specific reforms, one of her biggest achievements was maintaining stability and prosperity during a time of so much upheaval.
That's impressive.
Her reign is considered a golden age for the Tang Dynasty.
Wow.
With economic growth, territorial expansion, and a flourishing of arts and culture.
It's incredible that she not only held on to power for so long.
I know, right?
But also made the empire thrive.
Yeah.
But even the most powerful rulers...
They don't rule forever.
That's true. What happened to Wu Zetian?
Wow.
Did she die peacefully after a long and successful reign?
Unfortunately, no.
Oh.
In her later years, she relied more and more on a small group of advisors.
Okay.
And there were rumors of corruption in the court.
So even with all her political skills,
that's true,
she couldn't escape the pitfalls of power.
Yeah, it seems that way.
It's like that saying, power tends to corrupt.
Right.
And absolute power corrupts absolutely.
It's a lesson we see over and over in history.
Yeah.
And in Wu Zetian's case, it seems her declining health and the growing influence of those around her created a weakness that her opponents used against her.
So how did it all end?
Yeah.
Was there a big dramatic showdown?
It wasn't a dramatic coup.
Okay.
But it was a turning point.
Tell me more.
In 705 A.D.,
okay,
when she was in her 80s and her health was failing, some officials staged a revolt.
Oh, wow.
And forced her to step down.
Really?
In favor of her son.
So even though she was this trailblazing leader...
It's true.
She couldn't avoid the power struggles and betrayals...
Sadly, no.
...that come with the territory?
Yeah, it's a reminder...
Of what?
That even the most powerful people are often at the mercy of forces beyond their control.
Right.
In Wu Zetian's case, it was her health and the changing political scene that led to her downfall.
So sad.
But even though she lost power,
her
legacy continued.
That's good.
She left a permanent mark on Chinese history.
I I bet.
And her story still inspires us today.
Thinking about her story, it makes me think about the unique social landscape of the Tang Dynasty.
Right.
We talked about how women had more freedom then.
Yes.
Do you think that's why she was able to rise to power? Or would she have succeeded in any era?
It's hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
But those progressive views on women in the Tang Dynasty definitely created a good environment for her. It's no coincidence that the only woman to rule China as emperor came from a dynasty known for its openness and fluid social structure.
Makes you think.
Yeah.
What would have happened if she'd been born later?
Oh, like in the Song Dynasty.
Yeah.
Where Confucianism was revived.
Right.
And women's roles got more restricted. It's an interesting thought.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine her having the same power.
I know.
In a society where things like foot binding were common.
It's crazy to think how different things were.
I know. It's mind-boggling.
And it makes her accomplishments even more impressive.
Right. She was breaking barriers.
Absolutely.
In a society that, while more open than what came later, was still pretty patriarchal.
Exactly. And we have to remember.
What's that?
The Tang Dynasty wasn't perfect when it came to gender equality.
Right.
Upper-class women had more freedom, but lower-class women still had many restrictions.
It was a society with its own complexities.
For sure.
Just like any other. But beyond the general atmosphere, were there any specific cultural influences that led to this open attitude towards women?
Definitely. Like we said before, the Tang Dynasty was a mix of cultures. Blending influences from the nomadic traditions up north with more Confucian cultures down south.
And the nomadic cultures, they tended to have more equal views on gender roles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Women often participated in economic and even military activities.
Like Mulan.
Exactly. Mulan is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
And this northern influence really impacted Tang society.
How so?
It contrasted with the stricter male-dominated structure that Confucianism emphasized in the South.
I see.
It's this tension between those values that makes the Tang Dynasty so interesting.
Speaking of influence, we can't ignore the backlash that happened after Wu Zetian's reign.
Right.
It's sad how her success seems to have led to more restrictions on women.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
And one of the most debated parts of her legacy,
I can see that.
on the one hand, you could say her reign showed what women were capable of. She proved they could rule effectively, decisively, and for a long time.
But on the other hand, it seems like her success scared some men in power, right?
They saw her as a threat
to
how things were and felt like they had to put men back in charge.
So it's that classic thing. Progress leads to backlash.
Exactly.
From those who feel threatened.
Right.
And in her case,
her achievements challenged those deep-rooted patriarchal norms, leading to a reaction from those who wanted to maintain the old power structure.
It makes you wonder if her legacy would have been different if she hadn't been so successful.
Right.
Would there have been less resistance?
Maybe.
If she hadn't shaken things up so much?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Maybe if she had been less capable, she wouldn't have been seen as such a threat. But then, would we even be talking about her today?
Good point.
It's like she was in a no-win situation.
Yeah.
If she wasn't effective. Maybe less backlash.
Right.
But also less success and recognition.
It's a tough spot to be in.
It is.
And it highlights the struggles of challenging deep-seated social norms.
Exactly.
Especially around gender and power.
But even though there was a backlash, we can't ignore her impact.
Yeah.
She paved the way for other powerful women. And her story still inspires people.
Absolutely.
All over the world.
Wu Zetian's story reminds us
Yeah.
that progress isn't always straightforward.
That's true.
There are always setbacks and challenges along the way.
But each step forward, no matter how small, contributes to a bigger change.
And sometimes it takes someone extraordinary,
Right.
like Wu Zetian,
Absolutely.
to break the mold
Yeah.
and create a path for others.
She might not have single-handedly changed everything for women in China,
Right.
but she left a mark
She did.
that makes us rethink our ideas
Yeah.
about gender power and leadership.
It's amazing to think about how one person can have such a big impact, both good and bad.
Right.
Like ripples spreading through time.
Wu Zetian's story is the perfect example.
Yeah.
Her reign really affected the Tang Dynasty and all of China.
So let's talk about those effects.
Okay.
What were some of the long-term consequences?
Mm-hmm.
Did her reforms stick around, or did things go back to the old ways after she was gone?
Like with a lot of historical legacies,
Huh?
it's kind of a mixed bag.
How so?
Some of her reforms, like expanding the civil service exams, they had a lasting effect
Okay.
and helped make the Tang Dynasty stable and prosperous.
That's good to know.
It is.
Sounds like she made some real positive changes.
She did.
But we should also look at the not-so-good side
Right.
of her rule, especially how she got rid of her rivals.
Mm-hmm.
It created a climate of fear in the court.
It did.
We talked about how she used some pretty ruthless tactics
Yeah.
to hold on to power.
Uh-huh.
It seems like those tactics had a price.
They did. While they might have worked in the short term, they also had a long-term effect on the political culture of the dynasty.
Interesting.
They created a sense of instability and distrust that ultimately weakened the Tang.
It's a warning for any leader with a lot of power.
Absolutely.
Even with the best intentions.
Yeah.
The way you get power can have unintended consequences.
It's a question that societies have always struggled with.
For sure. How do you balance the need for strong leadership with the risks of unchecked power?
It's a tough one.
No easy answers.
Why not?
But looking back at people like Wu Zetian, it helps us understand how complex leadership really is.
Speaking of looking back, how would you sum up her legacy? Was she a hero, a villain, or somewhere in between?
It's tough to say.
Right.
She was a brilliant strategist, a capable administrator, a visionary leader who defied traditional gender roles.
For sure.
But she was also ruthless,
right,
ambitious, and sometimes morally questionable.
She really embodies those contradictions that you see in people who have great power.
Right.
Her story makes us think about the complexities of leadership and how hard it is to judge historical figures.
Right.
By today's standards.
It reminds us that history isn't simple.
No.
It's full of gray areas, and we have to deal with those nuances to really understand the past.
And as we do that, I think Wu Zetian's story offers some good lessons.
I agree. So as we wrap up our deep dive, what are the key things we can learn from her life?
I think one of the most important takeaways is leadership isn't about gender. It's about vision strategy.
Right.
And being able to inspire and motivate people. Wu Zetian showed that a woman could be a ruler just as well as any man.
She proved it.
Yeah.
Challenging centuries of thinking about leadership.
She broke that glass ceiling.
She did.
And showed that women could handle running a big, complex empire.
Another key takeaway is this.
What's that?
You have to understand and adapt to the cultural and political context you're operating in.
Exactly.
Wu Zetian was a master at that.
She was.
She knew how to read the situation and tailor her approach to fit the norms and expectations of her time. She knew when to appease, when to challenge, how to use the existing power structure to her advantage. She was a brilliant strategist.
She was.
Who used everything she had to reach her goals.
And even though some people might not like her methods, she got results.
But maybe the biggest takeaway is the importance of resilience and determination. She faced so many obstacles.
She did.
But she never gave up.
Never.
She's a reminder that even when things seem impossible, you can achieve great things if you have the courage, the vision, and the willpower.
So as we think about Wu Zetian's life, I have a question for our listeners.
Oh, I love a good question.
Hit me with it. If Wu Zetian were alive today, in our world, with all its problems and complexities, could she become as powerful? Would she face different obstacles?
Maybe more subtle ones.
Exactly.
It really makes you think.
It does.
About how far we've come with gender equality and how far we still have to go.
Right.
And it makes you wonder. What kind of leader she'd be today?
Yeah.
What would her strategies be? What challenges would she face?
Right.
And how would she change history?
So many questions.
It's a question with no easy answers.
No, but it's worth thinking about.
I think Wu Zetian's story has a lot to teach us. About leadership power and the fight for equality.
Even today.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From ancient Egypt to the Tang Dynasty court
And met some incredible women who defied expectations and made their mark.
I hope this deep dive has inspired you.
Me too.
To learn more about these amazing women.
Yes, and the history that shaped their lives.
I hope it's also made you think about leadership, power,
and the struggles to achieve equality.
In a world that's often resistant to change.
So, as we end,
I
encourage you to keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep pushing those boundaries.
Right.
Who knows, maybe another Wu Zetian is out there.
Ooh, I like that.
Ready to change the world.
It's an exciting thought.
It is.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going.